Welcome to UPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Murali Karnam. Today we are going to discuss about enforcement of fundamental rights in custody and the nature of custodial justice in practice. The objectives of this module is it is intended to evoke a discussion on the rights of prisoners and build perspectives on the justice. It attempts to comprehend the philosophical basis of rights of the prisoners. After studying this module, the student should be able to understand the constitutional basis of the rights of the prisoners, identify various rights and the legal status of the persons in custody in India, comprehend the special attention to be paid to their problems. Introduction. As an idea, custodial justice has been acquiring prominence in governance across the countries. Since the 1970s, the custodial justice has been one of the primary focus of judicial activism by Indian higher judiciary. The judiciary expanded the ambit of intervention into the darker corners of incarceration. It has subjected the arbitrary and colonial practices of executive in prisons to severe scrutiny and laid down guidelines for reformative measures. The thrust was largely to the reformation of the custodian. The Indian judiciary has tried to reframe the prison regime through the guidelines on the basis of constitutional and human rights norms. Here we will see the judiciary's attempt to define the prisoner as a citizen, the approach of the courts towards the status of prisoners, and their implication for the rights of the prisoners are discussed here. The prisoners as human beings are entitled for all the rights meant for citizens except the right to mobility. The right to freedom in the sense of mobility is considered as one of the most important aspects of human existence in modern world. The loss of this right to liberty, therefore, is the severest punishment the civilized society can imagine to inflict upon anyone for violation of others' rights by crime. Therefore, considering the imprisonment itself as a punishment and not for punishment, all other rights necessary for a decent existence of human beings should be restored to the prisoners. From this point of view, let us examine the judgment of the courts for the rights of the prisoners. The one more standpoint from which the prisoners' rights can be interpreted is that since the state handles the prisoners on behalf of the society, it is obligatory on the part of both of them to provide for all the human rights of the prisoners. In the dispensation of justice and punishment by the state on behalf of the society, there may not be consent from the prisoner as he may differ with it from his own sense of justice and social order. Yet, the convict is sent to prison as a means of punishment in the interest of justice required for sustenance of a social order. The conflict in the understanding of justice and social order between individual convict and state and society is overridden by a latter two, and it is therefore their responsibility to meet all the other rights, laws of which are incidental to the state of imprisonment. After India emerged as independent nation state and political system, its constitution, the largest ever devised in the world, has been the basic document that provides normative principles for governance. The constitution envisioned a social, political and economic justice, equality of status and opportunity before law, and freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, vocation, association, action as fundamental norms that should guide all the institutions, public or private, of society. This is the liberal philosophy of constitution that should reflect in the day-to-day functioning of the institutions of the new polity. Article 14, 19, 21 of Indian Constitution basically reflect the normative principles to be followed in the governance and social arrangement. The Prisons Act 1994 continues to govern the prisons administration in India. In fact, this act is the result of a consolidation and amendment of the Prisons Act of 1870. The Civil Jails Act 1874 is the oldest of all acts that is in vogue for administration of prisons at present. The legal position of the prisoner as the confined for punishment constructed in 19th century is yet to undergo a change. The acts consolidated the status of the institution of prison long before the idea of reformation became popular. The Prisons Act 1894 has a preamble which makes no attempt to stress its objective. Let us discuss about Sunil Batra case number 1. This is a case related to one prisoner called Sunil Batra who filed a writ under Article 32 of the Constitution. In this case, the Supreme Court asserted that the judges, even within the prison setting, are real though restricted ombudsmen empowered to prescribe, humanize, civilize the lifestyle within the prison. The operation of the Article 14, 19 and 21 of the Constitution may be pared down for prison but not ousted altogether. It declared that all the restrictions imposed on the prison not necessary for confinement are doing violence to the Part 3 of the Constitution. Though prior to this case, the Supreme Court dealt with many cases of custodial violence. This is the first case in which the public came to know the horrors of prison life in independent India. The fundamental questions the court addressed are, in spiritual terms, whether the prison system has a conscience; in constitutional terms, whether a prisoner ipso facto forfeits the personhood to become a rightless slave of the state; and in cultural terms, whether management of prison society can operate its arts by zoological strategies. Until then, the autonomy of prison functioning is so much that the prison authorities in this case resisted the intervention of apex court into intramural affairs of its functioning, relying on the section 30 and 56 of Prisons Act of 1894. The court lamented the attitude of the prisons executive, which defended the prison wrongs as right even 30 years after independence, and quipped that legislatures over the decades are perhaps preoccupied with more popular business than concern for the detained derelicts who are scattered, voiceless, noiseless and minority. The prison administration glibly invoked dangerousness of the inmates and the necessity of peace in prison to resist the judicial intervention. The court dismissed the argument of the prison executive that murderers deserving death sentence continue to be dangerous. The petitioners invoked Article 14, 19, 21 of the Constitution. The apex court made it once and for all clear that the jurisdictional reach and range of the writ to hold prison impulse and cruelty in constitutional leash is incontestable, and prisoners have enforceable liberties, devalued maybe, but not demonetized. It strongly asserted that the prison laws do not swallow up the fundamental rights of the legally unfree, and said that as sentinel it would guard freedom behind bars, tempered of course by environmental realism but intolerant of torture by prison executive. It accepted that the right to mobility to prisoner is limited, but ruled that binding hands and foot with hoops of steel is violative of Article 19 of the Constitution. It made it amply clear that even a person under death sentence has human rights which are non-negotiable, and even a dangerous prisoner standing trial has basic liberties which cannot be bartered away, and said that every prisoner is entitled to integrity of personality, vice freedom from crippling on the body, mind, moral fiber. It said that prison practices are too discriminatory to be valid under Article 14, too unreasonable to be ultra vires of the Article 19, and too terrible to qualify for being a human law under Article 21. It strongly objected to the unaccountable prison autonomy. It questioned the hypersensitivity about the safe custody by prison officials, even when the life and liberty of the prisoners are in danger. The confinement given to Sunil Batra as a condemned prisoner has had all the features of solitary confinement, which can only be imposed by court as a judicial punishment under Section 73 of Indian Penal Code. The sections 73 and 74 at least provide some respite to prisoner, as it is a punishment of maddening severity. The prison superintendent argued that the prisoner is not under solitary confinement but under statutory confinement under the authority of Section 30 subsection 2 of Prisons Act, read with Section 366(2) of Criminal Procedure Code 1973. None of these sections provide for complete seclusion of prisoner from others, but the prison in practice made the safe custody virtually into a solitary confinement. So let us discuss about Charles Obra's case. The Supreme Court bench, which heard the case of Sunil Batra, also heard the case of Charles Gurmukh Sobraj, who was subjected to persistent bar fetters for 2 years without break, notwithstanding wounds on the heels and medical advice to the contrary. In this, Supreme Court asserted that poverty cannot be degraded as dangerousness, except by subverting of our egalitarian ethos of Constitution. The court described this as a soft justice syndrome towards the rich, not social justice response towards the poor, and denounced it as the class character of the jail justice. The court in this case said that the predilection of dangerousness of the prisoners are hazardous, and its management in prison setting is often overkill or under-scientific. The irrationality of the bar fetters based on the subjective judgment by men without psychiatric training and humane feeling make every prisoner dangerous. The court hoped that the state would revise the section 30 and 56 of the Prisons Act, which are out of tune with human rights moorings. It clearly stated that the Constitution outlawed the brutality and humanity, and if they enter the prison through back door entry, masked as security, they cannot escape the constitutional gauntlet. In this judgment, one of the important mechanisms the court suggested is to establish necessary infrastructure for an independent review of such actions. In the absence of such mechanisms, such actions should be invalid as arbitrary, unfair and unreasonable. The prison officials will then be liable to civilly and criminally for just to the person of the prisoner. In Ms. Veena Sethi and State of versus case in 1982, the Supreme Court found that 6 prisoners in Hazaribagh Central Prison of Bihar were kept in illegal detention for 2 to 3 decades without any justification whatsoever. The court said that the specimens of the humanity were languishing in jail for years behind stone walls and iron bars, deprived of freedom and liberty, which are the inalienable rights of human beings. These prisoners were a lot in the oblivion of time and had become merely ticket numbers in the jail. The Supreme Court found it shocking that such a situation should prevail in any civilized society. Particularly shocking was the case of Gomya Ho, who was incarcerated on 1945 and sentenced to undergo a rigorous imprisonment for only 3 years and to pay a fine only of 100 rupees. Purely on account of carelessness of the state and prison authorities, he spent 37 years in jail. The court anticipated that one day the cry and despair of large number of people would shake the very foundations of our society and imperil the entire democratic structure. When that happens, we have only ourselves to blame. Also particularly agonizing was the case of Bandhuva Kurmi, who rotted in jail for 9 years in excess of his sentence period because of the controversy between different departments as to the spelling of his name. In Sunil Batra case 2, one prisoner called Premchand was tortured by inserting a baton into his anus by the warder Magar Singh as a means to extract money from the victim. The Supreme Court recognized the prisoner as a person in prison under the order and directions of the court and said that not recognizing him as a person would amount to convicting the nation and constitution of dehumanization and to repudiate the world legal order, which recognized the rights of prisoners in the International Covenant on Prisoners' Rights, to which India is a signatory. Finally, it said that the prisoners have enforceable liberties and are too precious to be left to the jailers. In response to Additional Solicitor General, who argued for realistic circumstances of prisons to defend the violation of rights by the prison officials, Supreme Court described the prisoners as the legally unfree and said that even a person under death sentence has human rights, which are non-negotiable, and even a dangerous prisoner has basic liberties which cannot be bartered away. It recognized the prisoner as poor, mute, illiterate, desperate and destitute and too distant from law to be aware of their rights or to ask for access to justice, especially when the running tension of the prison and the grisly potential for zoological reprisal stare them in their face. the Supreme Court noted the fact that prisoners are peculiarly and doubly handicapped. The fact is that firstly, most prisoners belong to weaker sections in poverty and literacy. Secondly, the prison house is a walled off world which is incommunicado from the human world, which with the result the bonded inmates are invisible, voiceless, and their injustices are unheeded. The life in the state for prisoner will remain as an animal existence, contrary to the Article 21 of the Constitution, if the principles of fair procedure do not flow into the prison. The fundamental responsibility to protect the person of the prisoner therefore lies with the courts. It also therefore said that no iron curtain could be drawn between the prisoner and the Constitution. It claimed that it has a continuing responsibility as a performance auditors of legality to ensure that the constitutional purpose of deprivation is not defeated by the prison administration. It asserted that it has power and responsibility to intervene and protect the prisoner against mayhem, crude and subtle, and use habeas corpus for enforcing imprisonment, imprisoned humanism. It asserted that jailers are bound by the rule of law and cannot inflict supplementary sentences under disguise and defeat the primary purpose of imprisonment. And therefore, it recommended series of instant administrative grievance procedures such as visits by family members, judges, dissemination of rules and regulations, and such other measures to improve the situation in the prisons. From the above judgment of the apex court, it is clear the judiciary tried to redefine the legal status of prisoner as a human being from that of a subject obedient to the endless rules of prison authorities. It categorically tried to establish the rule of law within the prison by suggesting certain mechanisms of external control to comply with human norms of administration. The complaints to such measures by the courts will be discussed hereafter. In the case of D.B. Patnaik versus State of MP, the Supreme Court said, convicts are not by mere reason of conviction denuded of all the fundamental rights which they otherwise possess. Even a convict is entitled to precious rights guaranteed by the Article 21, that he shall not be deprived of the life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Here is an effort by the court to recognize the prisoner as a citizen. The process of prisoner's prosecution for prison offences does not follow any principles of natural justice. In Patar Singh's case, the Supreme Court said that the prison administration should follow the principles of natural justice in awarding serious punishments to the prisoner. The arbitrary power that the manual grants to the prison superintendent completely erases the distinction between legality and illegality. Safeguards provided by the courts for the protection of the rights of the prisoners has to be discussed. What are the safeguards? The rights of the convicts from the arbitrary power of the prison authority. The Indian High Courts and Supreme Court have tried to carve out a role for themselves for the defense of the prisoners' rights. In the initial years of judicial activism, the prisons resisted the intervention into their affairs of court. In Sunil Batra case 1, the Supreme Court has rejected the hands of doctrine and ruled that the fundamental rights do not flee the person as he enters the prison, although they may suffer shrinkage necessitated by incarceration. It reminded the prison administration that the convict is in prison under the order and directions of the court. It also said that no iron curtain could be drawn between prisoner and constitution, and said, suffice to say that so long as judges are invigilators and enforcers of constitutionality and performance auditors of legality, and convicts serve their terms in that grim microcosm called prison by the mandate of the court, a continuing institutional responsibility vests in the system to monitor the incarceratory process and prevent security excesses. Jailers are bound by the rule of law and cannot inflict supplementary sentences under disguise or defeat the primary purpose of imprisonment. The apex court recognized that the power to punish in the hands of prison official is one of the greatest sources of prisoners' rights violation, and therefore laid down the following guidelines to be followed while dealing with the prisoners. Section 56 of the Prisons Act, which authorizes the prison superintendent to impose the punishment of fetter, should be tamed and trimmed by the rule of law, and his power should be pruned and his discretion bridled. Under trial should be deemed to be in custody but not undergoing punitive imprisonment. When the punitive restraints are imposed, the burden of proof of the ground is on the custodian. The punishment should be in no case go beyond the intervals, conditions and maxima laid down for the purpose. The discretion to impose punitive restraints is subject to quasi-judicial oversight, even purportedly imposed for reasons of security. In the same judgment, the Apex Court ordered that within the 3 months after delivery of that judgment, the grievance deposit boxes should be maintained under the orders of district magistrate and the sessions judge, which will be opened as frequently as is deemed fit and suitable action taken on complaints made. In this context, the Apex Court observed the following. In sensitive areas of prison justice, the judicial members have special responsibilities and they must act as wholly independent overseers and not as ceremonial panelists. The judges are guardians of prisoners' rights because they have a duty to secure the execution of the sentence without excess and to sustain personal liberties of the prisoners without violence or violation of inmates' personality. Moreover, when a wrong is done inside the jail, the judicial visitor is virtually peripatetic tribunal and sentinel, at once intramural and extramural, observer, receiver and adjudicator of grievances. The courts have tried to tame the power of prison over the inmates by trying to establish rational relationship between the restrictions imposed and the maintenance of internal order and discipline. They questioned the various blanket restrictions imposed on the prisoners in the name of security and discipline. The Bombay High Court, in a case Madhukar Bhagavan Jambale versus State of Maharashtra, struck down the prison rules that imposed restrictions on the prisoners' right to communicate with the outside world as a violative of Article 14, 19 and 21 of the Constitution. In the case of Ranchod versus State of Madhya Pradesh, it was brought out sharply the dictatorial role of prison doctors and its implication on the prisoners. This is a case filed in High Court of Madhya Pradesh by prisoner Ranchod along with his father Banta from the central jail Indore, alleging that his brother Vengaria, prisoner serving a sentence in the same prison, died of poisoning by jail doctors on 18th November 1986. They alleged that some poisonous injection was given to Vengaria, who refused to wash clothes of the doctor, nurse and compounders. In this case, the court found out that the prison authorities tampered with the prison records to show the deceased had been ill for 2 weeks and also the collusion of the doctors of Indore City Hospital with the farmer. It deprecated the indifferent attitude of city police, magistrates and doctors to record the dying declaration of the deceased. It also expressed its agony about how the father and brother of the deceased prisoner staying in the same prison were kept in darkness about the critical conditions of the prisoner. Conclusion. After examination of the attempts by the judiciary to defend the rights of the prisoners, we find a certain process is underway in prison discourse. First of all, the judiciary tried to question the unaccountable autonomy of the prison. It claimed its own rights to intervene into the prison for the defense of the prisoners' rights. To attribute the rights to the prisoners, the judiciary tried to define the character of the prisoner beyond the criminality and recognized his individuality with personality and humanity, and declared that most of the rights provided in the Constitution should be available to him. In the process of applying constitutional norms to do justice to the prisoner, the judiciary recognized the prisoner almost a citizen. It also tried to demystify the dangerousness of the character of the prisoner as a criminal by trying to invoke the social factors involved in it. Having once recognized the prisoner as citizen, the judiciary tried to redefine the limited meaning of imprisonment as being legally unfree under its own direction. The loss of freedom itself was recognized as the most severe form of punishment, and therefore the punishments imposed on convicts by the prison were declared as illegal and against the constitutionality of the punishment. To that extent, the power of the prison has to come under the purview of constitutionality by revising the prison laws and regulations and taming the authority of the personnel. It declared that the power of the judiciary continues to flow within the prison to preserve the rights of the prisoners. The judiciary thus made an attempt to delineate the limited and defined meaning of the sentence and the corresponding shrinkage in the power of the prison. The judiciary declared that the power of the prison is too arbitrary to be reasonable under the norms of the constitutional law. The prison is recognized as resorting to crime of punishment. Therefore, judiciary tried to provide certain mechanisms to apply principles of natural justice and enforce the constitutional norms within the prison. In the mechanisms provided, one can see the trend of policing of the reformer. Thank you for watching this video.